Hello, Tarot lovers. This is Jenna Roberts from Present Path Tarot, and I am sharing lessons on the Tarot for tarot lovers and those who also just want to learn more about the mythos and the archetypes within this deck of cards. Today we're going to talk about something relevant to many of us, which is the card of surrender and sacrifice, which many of us are doing around the world right now in our shelter-in-place orders. So we're talking about the Hanged Man card. This is the story of Odin, who hung himself from a tree, the Yggdrasil tree, which was kind of the world knowledge tree, to sacrifice himself unto himself. He hung himself from the tree and cut his side with a spear and hung there for 9 days and 9 nights in a meditative form. From that sprang the runes, and he gained the ability to communicate through divination to his followers. He also cut his eye out, and I'm not sure if that's the same story or not. Feel free to leave comments on anything that you have heard different or want to correct me on in the comments, but I'm pretty sure that's the basic story. I love this card, and many people see it as a dark card, one that's about sacrifice and loss. And yes, clearly that's part of it. I also see it as a card of surrendering into the unknown and giving into a state of meditation and going towards your own enlightenment by really letting yourself sink into the quiet of yourself. This is a card of going into deeper levels and breaking away from the routine to understand the systems that we have, to understand yourself. And I think this card's very relevant right now. Here's a couple different examples of it. This is from the Bosch Tarot deck, which shows the darker side of it a little bit. So this is, I like this card because of the sort of idea that the universe sometimes puts us into this situation, this little monster down there. But I also feel like I don't like this message, and each card has its own, interpretation, but simply because it looks like he didn't choose this path. Another one that I like that's more directed towards self-choice this is from the Silver Witchcraft Tarot, and this one he's really choosing to be in this position, and it's a much more active sort of thing, but it's still in a meditative way, so a different way to look at it of choice. And this is one of my favorite interpretations from the World Spirit Tarot, and this one I really appreciate because it's first of all, he's ripped. Check out those abs. Woo. I like it because it also has the spear that he cut himself with, and it just holds a real serenity to me in the choice of colors. So look at your own. Go ahead if you want to pause and get out your own decks and look up your Hanged Man cards and kind of compare what are the different messages you see in each one. Because as we read tarot, they can be interpreted different ways based on the image that you see. And sometimes I go for more traditional message, and sometimes I really get messages from the cards that strike me in the reading that become a part of the message instead. So consider that. I think the message here is that we all need to choose to sacrifice something to this world issue happening. We have a virus, and it's outside our control. A big part of Hanged Man card is when things are outside your control. You have to let go and let God, and that's what this card's about. And letting go and let God doesn't have to be an outside external God. It can be your internal divine. So quieting your mind and meditating and taking practices that really pull you inward and journaling and listening to your internal self is super key right now. And also allowing things to change through this for the better. Only through stopping, quieting, and letting some things pass away can we have a rebirth happen. And this card can have to do with a rebirth because Odin was reborn from this situation, a higher divine God from how I understand it to be. Another thing that you want to consider is, how can you surrender to these circumstances with faith? And another thing to think about is, what is your relationship to control? and how much can you let go of control right now? And at the same time, in our situation with the cleaning we need to be doing and the social distance or physical distancing we need to be doing, we have to also be in a state of control and communication with others around how much they're controlling. So it's an interesting thing where we're walking a tightrope with control right now. Also, he's upside down. So do you need to look at this from a totally new perspective? Can you pull back and just have your world go topsy-turvy so you can better understand something about your life? Do you need more time and to slow down in your general bigger life? And is this an opportunity for you to pull back and slow down and assess what to do, or wait for circumstances to emerge to kind of decide? You know, you don't have to make a decision right now. You can just wait a moment and breathe. Everyone right now should be slowing down, taking better care of themselves. Also thinking, what do you need to do to sacrifice for the benefit of everyone? Staying inside is really important right now, us keeping distance from each other. And there's some people who aren't doing it, and it's that frustration that we all need to be doing this to honor the doctors, the nurses, even the grocery store staff who need less people getting sick so that they can manage, you know, the doctors and nurses especially, the amount of people coming through, and the grocery store people, keeping them healthier, choosing to wear a mask, you know, being conscious of it's not about me right now. It's about the bigger picture. And that's a lot what the Hangman card is about. You know, how can we consider the bigger picture and step outside our own needs to really look wider and get a wider perspective and a unique perspective on things. I love this card. It's one of my favorite cards. It's not an easy one to get. And sometimes if it's reversed, I find that can often mean that person is when they're over-sacrificing for everybody instead of taking care of their best interests. That person who needs to write their book but is always too busy taking care of everybody else to ever get pen to page. That mom, there's a lot of moms out there who running haggard taking care of kids in ways where those kids should start to be taking care of themselves more, making their own sandwiches. And that mom is doing it to avoid facing her own needs. So when it's reversed, I see it as over-sacrificing unnecessarily rather than, or it can also be the opposite of selfishness, of choosing to go to spring break in Florida and be around a bunch of people and then go kiss your grandma, you know, making choices that are unconscious. So that's kind of the opposite side. So when we have a reversal, that's usually, if you take the triangle, the top is like that card in its balance perfection, and the bottom is that in its bipolar negative. So on one hand being very passive opposite from the healthy balanced version, or being hyperactive. So the hyperactive manic side being like the mom doing too much for everyone else, over-sacrificing and becoming a martyr. And not necessarily a mom, but you know, and talking archetypes. And the passive side being the total unconsciousness, lacking in considering others' needs. So when we're looking at reversals, that's a way to think about both sides of the balanced form, is the passive and the hyperactive being the negatives of that particular card. What do you think about the Hanged Man? Do you have different interpretations? Do you have stories about it from your own readings you want to share? Does it confuse you? Do you have any references you've seen to it? One of the things I love when I'm watching movies, since I've been a tarot reader, is catching glimpses of card images. So in the movie Maleficent, the boy who's in love with the girl is being sacrificed. He's being carried in to kiss the girl, and when he falls, his leg drops just like the Hangman, makes a figure 4. And I thought, oh, Hangman moment, you know, and he's in a state of sort of passivity of being unconscious, but you know, and you can take what you like with that, and perhaps it was by accident, but I think a lot of Hollywood is very on board with these archetypes. that show up in movies regularly. So anything that you'd like to share about the Hanged Man? I'd love questions, and let's create a dialogue about this amazing card. And just remembering that during this time that we're in shelter in place, even though it's scary, letting yourself give in to your own enlightenment, doing the things that you've desired to do, but you haven't given yourself the time to do, sacrificing yourself to write in your journal, to go introspective. So I'd say the keys to this card are going introspective, in a meditative, surrendering, leaning back format, thinking of the greater consciousness, the greater values. What are your values? Really sitting with your own values and how they're reflected in your daily life. And surrendering, did I say that already? Yeah. So those are some key details that are fun to think about. I love tarot reading, and I'm going to start sharing more little lessons like this. They'll probably get more refined as I go. So have a lovely day, and feel free to write your comments as to what you think about the Hanged Man.